Peeps, you have decided to listen to another episode of Next Level Radio. This is going to be episode number 62, 63. We're right around there. We're kind of rolling, and this actually, you will be the first, as this tomorrow, we'll be recording the second returning podcast guest. So we've got in the house today, Aanen Moody. I've been calling him Aanen for a while, and I finally got it down. And so, man, the first podcast, top 5, one of our original ones, just talking life. You were just getting ready to head to SUU. And so things have transpired now. We've gone through COVID. We've gone through a bunch of different things. And so I'm freaking excited to have you on, and it's been good to get and train you again. And so, yeah, I'll have you introduce yourself a little bit for everybody.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
You are totally right, though. Like, there has been a lot of stuff that has gone on between then and now.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to talk about. So I appreciate being on here. I'm from Dickinson, North Dakota. It's weird because when I come back home, it's like I don't get as many like hellos and waves, and when I leave, goodbyes, because it's like more new people come in here every single year. And it's like I'm not really this superstar anymore, which is cool because now I'm just a normal person. So I like being back, seeing my family, and seeing guys like Kobe that support me and that also have something to offer me. So it's nice to be here. I appreciate it.
How was that? I was on a much smaller scale. It's a good thing to talk about, but navigating, being humble, but you were one of the best basketball players in the last decade to come out of Dickinson, North Dakota. So how was that, like, navigating that? Like, we look at what's happening with Simone Biles right now. Totally different level, but this pressure, like, how navigating that stardom almost. It's a little different, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, what I tell people, because I have I call him my little brother. His name's Alex Dvorak, and right now he's at Dickinson High. He's a sophomore, averaging about 23 a game.
Ooh.
So he's a good player, right? And I tell him, and I try to kind of weave him through some of my mishaps that I had. And I tell him it was like when I was younger, it was like the world was so small without having all this ball is life stuff going on, and all this AAU stuff was not as hyped as it is now.
Yeah.
So it's like the world that I lived in was smaller. So I was so focused on pleasing the people that I was around instead of seeing that there's a bigger picture to this and that I'm actually not as good as I thought. So then you go to college and it humbles you, as you know.
Yeah. Well, I think we had the conversation. I thought my shit didn't stink in 2010-ish when I'm getting into high school. And then, I mean, I'm the best player on the team. I'm all-state. I'm 2-year runner-up in wrestling, like having very good success. And then YouTube comes out. And I'm like, oh, that's what a D1 running back looks like Florida, California, like that really puts things into perspective pretty quick. You don't realize, and I think that's that big fish, little pond, big fish. Once you start heading out to, because a lot of people around here go, if they're going to play ball, they'll go to Dickinson State. They'll go to Black Hills. They'll go to one of those. But not a lot of people. Did you play with, outside of Dickinson, but other North Dakota guys when you're at UND as well? Quite a few, or?
No, I didn't play with any North Dakota guys. So it was a whole new, I was probably one of 4 of the white guys on the team. So the culture was very, very confrontational, and it was amazing because that's something that I never got in North Dakota. So I got to blend in, and I got to see personalities from New York, Chicago, all over the map. Like, it was crazy. And then, you just are in the locker room with those type of guys every single day. And the way it changes your perspective on life is crazy. Yeah. A lot of people don't get that experience.
No.
So now I'm on my new team, and it's like a whole different group of cities. And now a lot of these guys, too, have had different experiences going to LSU, UNLV, Utah State, a lot of these high majors. And now I'm getting more information on what it's like, and actually the similarities between the high levels and the mid-major levels, and even the NAI levels and the D2 levels. So now when people tell me, like, oh, he's only D2 or he's like a college athlete is a college athlete. There's an NAI guy right now out of, I think, Shawnee University. It's NAI, and he's going to be I think he's going to be like a first or second round draft pick right now. So so don't tell anybody that, just because they're an NAI basketball player doesn't mean that they're good right? So that's kind of the transition where now I feel like because of the internet, because of all this stuff, that kids that don't go Division I are not done. You know, they can still make whatever dream they have possible, which is awesome.
Well, you talked that you were good friends with Jay Liggins for a long time too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I've known him since he was in 8th grade.
Exactly, dude. Like Jay has defied all odds. Like you look at him, he looks like a D1 dude. I mean, he's chiseled up. He plays ball. Well, his experience led him to Dickinson. It didn't lead him to LSU. You know, and as of I talked to him yesterday. Last week they did final cuts, and Jay's still kicking. Yeah, man. So he's doing well. It's cool to see. Like he FaceTime me, got to see the Winnipeg stadium. Like legit, dude, legit. They have so the following year, prior year, they won the Grey Cup, the Super Bowl of the Canadian Football League, and so kind of in a rebuild. But you mentioned having different walks of life and meeting different people. I came from Worland, Wyoming, which 4,000 to 5,000 people, had one good buddy, and he was my good buddy, one black kid in our entire town. Tiama Marne, he's a good dude. And but then you come here, and I got Quincy and Jesse from Hawaii. I get all these different Samoan backgrounds, New York, all these different places, and they become like part of your best friend group. And it's just cool to see all these different paths lead to that spot, and it's different. And in NAI, again, you have the talent pool, you have it just doesn't have sometimes the opportunities that some other people have got. So I truly enjoyed it. It was something that I got looks from University of Wyoming. It was either go develop for 1 to 2 years, play some special teams, and then start balling. Came here and ended up just playing all 4 years, which I'm completely happy with. That's what brought this. You know?
Yeah, ultimately, like if you can get 4 years of college paid for free, like why would anybody not want that? Because chances are, even if I go to UNLV, if I go to Kentucky or Duke, that doesn't mean I'm guaranteed an NBA spot.
No.
So I might just be using my degree after my 4 years anyway. So I'm back at the same situation in life as you were, right? Because we're both using our 4 years at an NAID one, and we're both now in the same situation in life. You might have more connections, but maybe your personality didn't allow you to build more And maybe in the NAI school where you were at, maybe you were the guy. So guess what? You got all of that connectivity from the town that's supporting you and the state that's supporting you. And now you're a superstar, right? Whereas you go to Duke and you're nobody.
Just another player.
Right? Yeah, you're just another player, and now you're in the same spot. The guy that went to NAI is probably in a better position than the –
You got to find that fine line, because a lot of people, you knew guys probably when you were in high school too, parents are like, well, I want my kid to get better looks, so we're going to move to X, you know, where they're moving them out of the scenario, moving out of the school. I get it. Half the time it works, half the time it backfires because you find out you're really not that good. So it's difficult to kind of navigate that. But as we chatted about, let's kind of dive in a little bit. The different experiences. What have you seen as the different experiences? For people that don't know, playing ball at UND and then going to Southern Utah. So what's kind of the differences that you've seen a little bit there?
I'd say the first thing that was noticeable to me was the difference in how coaches coach, right? Because I've only had I had Coach Jones right away from our first 2 years. Then we got a new coach in Coach Sather. And then I got Coach Simon at Utah. So it was just weird to me because I just realized how everybody's personality that I know is so much different. And I realized at that point that every coach coaches with their personality. So their coaching style is going to be completely different, and it's going to be catered to their personality. And so I came there, and I was like, wow, the culture is way different. The environment is way different. The interaction between your coaches, the respect that they have for you or you have for them, it's different depending on how much vulnerability the coach wants to have with the team, right? Because sometimes, like with Coach Jones, my first coach, and I loved it actually, but he would kind of step away. He would not let a lot of players, into his personal life, and he'd kind of have the assistant coaches bridge that gap. So they were like our homies, like they were our friends, like they were for us and with us. Like we'd hang out together, we'd go out to, eat together with these guys, and they were just our friends. So they bridged that gap of relationship, and then then it was Coach Jones at the top of the totem pole, and he knew how to be a leader. So he was so good at being able to direct not only his coaches but his players on what to do. And because of that, we always respected him because he demanded respect, right? And sometimes when people don't respect you, you have to demand it, especially a person in leadership too, because a lot of people want to be in your spot and make decisions.
Yep.
So if you're going to be making decisions, and so I went to Southern Utah, and now it's like my coach is such a good person that he's so laid back, and he kind of lets the team figure things out for themselves, and then we can go to coach on whether it's a good idea or not, and then he'll kind of guess and check it for us. So sometimes he'll be like, hey, I want the leaders to be able to determine what we do in practice today. Like, how rare is that?
Yeah.
You know, that
especially at a D1.
That's what I'm saying, that any coach would let the team determine what you do in practice. And this is preseason, so we only have so many practices before our first game. Yeah. And we have 8 new guys on our team. 8, right? 8 of them. So we have a brand new team, and yet he's letting us determine what we do in practice. So that type of stuff is awesome to me, and getting to learn, different types of coaching styles.
The giving the reins away, finding that good balance. In my personal experience, I've had coaches that have played that friend card way too close, and I've had coaches that were just unrelatable. Finding that center ground. When I was when training the college football team, getting to know the players, I do one thing with every single player, whether that's women's basketball or football, and we do what's called why meetings. And these why meetings, we answer 3 questions. And a few of them are pretty easy. It was like, okay, if you weren't a football player, if you weren't a physical education major, if money was no issue, what would you be doing right now if you could furnish anything you wanted, if you could do whatever you wanted? That one's easy. Then the second one kind of brings the walls down a little bit for both of us, because I'll answer the same thing. And I'll say, in your life, hands down, just off the top of your head, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to go through in your life? Whether that's mental, physical, relationships, whatever, drug abuse. And then the last one is, who's the most influential person in your life? So from that, I get that person's number. I call that person and I say, hey, Joe Blow said you're the most influential person in their life, hands down. Like, that helps with that connection of the parent or whoever it is. That helps to know that player knows that you care. And it was something that completely set the tone for the culture. Okay, this coach, he demands a shit ton of me, but he cares. Like, he knows my past, he knows my history, he knows my future. That's something that I found is pretty interesting, because when I've coached, and I've coached the gamut, middle school through professional, and it's kind of interesting to see what people, what's the word for it? How they experience my coaching style. Yeah. And so you have a kid that possibly had a drug infested house, the dad's an alcoholic, whatever. So my military-esque, let's go, whistle blowing, screaming, they don't what's the word that I'm looking for? React to that very well. Yeah. They do not react to that. But some kids need that. Some kids need the get your ass going. So you have to find that fine line. And I think it's pretty cool when coaches can really do that, because that's when we see the huge success. Yeah, for sure, man. It's something that I found is much important than the X and O's. Yeah. Like both your coaches where you're at right now are probably the top of their game at X's and O's. Yeah. But it's all about the stuff on the outside, man. Yeah. So from that, had success at UND, decided to go to SUU, and how has that experience transpired? How's that been? You've had some very minor injury with the ankle, but overall, how's your experience down in Utah?
Man, I tell people my experience is more than just basketball, because down there you have 5 national parks within a 90-mile radius of where I live. So we went down there also at the beginning of the housing market, just booming. So we bought a condo and we got it for a great price, and now the value of it has exponentially grown. Oh, yeah. So I know, you're into investing, and I'm into investing as well, and I think real estate down there especially is one of the best spots in America right now. Yeah. that we can buy. So, I mean, as far as that is going amazing. And there was one other thing I was gonna say. Oh yeah, so I remember we're driving back. So we live in Cedar City, southern Utah, and we don't really get out of southern Utah very much. And the terrain is very beautiful, but very similar for probably 3 hours of the drive down there, St. George, Cedar City area. So we're driving through Salt Lake, and we're driving like all the way up, and we're just like talking about how beautiful it is. We're like, okay, top 3 states, where would you want to live? We're going Alaska, Hawaii, interchangeable, and then Utah, gotta be Utah. Like most underrated state though, just because the high Mormon population that is down there, I feel like scares a lot of people and puts a stigma on the state in general.
Yep.
But a lot of people from that area, like California, that region, call it God's country. That's what they call it down there. Not even Utah people, like Arizona, New Mexico. It's called God's country for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Not because the Mormons, but and they're great people too. Honestly, the stigma is incorrect, just like any stigma is against African Americans, against Christians, against anybody. The stigma is always incorrect because there's exceptions to every single stereotype.
Yep.
Right.
Utah has so much diversity in their geographical locations and their different types of wildlife. You have the deserts. You have over by where you're at in southern Utah. Then you have the beautiful mountains in Salt Lake. You have Strawberry Canyon. You got Park City. You got just these absolutely beautiful places. And I like that you touch on LDS and Mormon. My father grew up Mormon and attempted to have me follow that path.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. So This is nuts. For 18 years so my parents are divorced. So when your parents are divorced and you're under 18, you don't have a lot of say. You're here at this house, then you're here at this house, which is fine. You need that structure because lawfully some divorces are ugly. And dude, it's just so different for me. Maybe my attention span at that time didn't serve me well, but the length of time, and I'll get into the fundamentals of LDS, but the length of time to have a kid go to 3 separate classes, 45 minutes apiece, then you go to what would be considered our sermon or our gathering time as a congregation, and then all you do is you have your songs, and then you have testimonies. That's it. Testimonies, classes, and all this very encompassing holistic approach, I guess you could say. But the issue I had with it is, first and foremost, Mormon people and LDS people are quite possibly the nicest people I've ever met.
They are.
The nicest people you've ever met. Dude, it's just a different, I don't know what it is. They're very comforting. A lot of them, the ones I knew, because Wyoming's very full as well, a lot of them very well off, very successful in their careers. And just nice people, but I just couldn't, there was a disconnect for me. There's a huge disconnect because at the fundamental basis of it, there's the Bible and there's the Book of Mormon. And that's where I had this disconnect of what's missing in this that didn't fit their narrative they made in this.
Why don't they connect? That's what I asked too.
Exactly. And there's so much behind it, like the celestial levels of heaven, depending on how you do things. And I don't down on anybody. It's not inherently negative or inherently positive, but it just wasn't my style. And so it was a long 18 years on, and it was a long 18 years. I remember, this is kind of crazy. I've never said this on live podcast before. So I've acted like I was sick plenty of times, so I didn't have to go to church. I was like, oh, I'm throwing up. My stomach hurts. Well, we have this little patio at my dad's house, and I ended up just being a middle school kid, being a shithead. I ended up pissing off of the patio onto like this concrete just so that I would have to come back and clean it up so I didn't have to go to church. That wasn't the inherently negative experience I had with it, dude. Like, it was so bad. I had to it wasn't connecting for me, brother. So again, great people, just wasn't my thing.
Wow, that's bad. Like,
I'm telling you.
Calling in sick is one thing, but when you got that is
off
bad.
The patio, brother. I'm telling you.
Bad. Wow.
It was different, man.
Yeah.
But
I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's just well, even depending on Catholic, non-denominational Christian, I grew up Baptist my entire life with my mom. So very positive, non-traditional, a little bit more contemporary feel. You have a band at church, a lot of uplifting music. It was great, but that's what I gravitated towards. Maybe it was just my personality, And so, but yeah, getting back on track, back from Utah, I wanted to, in North Dakota, UND is held very highly Coach Kramer at NDSU, great strength and conditioning coach.
Is that football?
Yeah. He's great. He's been doing it forever. But UND as a whole, the whole entire UND strength program is held very highly. In my world, it's definitely looked at very well. So how was your experience strength, solely strength and conditioning for there?
Well, my experience involved two specific individuals. And one's guy, his name's Sean Fantuzzi, and he graduated at Penn State. And I had him for my first 2 years. And honestly, he changed my life. Like, I hope Sean watches this one time.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him to watch this.
I'll have to tag up UND.
Because he's actually not there anymore.
Oh.
He's not there anymore. And I'll get to this. So Sean, he was more than just a strength and conditioning coach because he was so smart and he read so many books. He always encouraged us to read books, to do things that enhanced our ability as athletes, but as people. So he would tell us to pick up garbage and stuff like that, and we respected him because of that. So Sean had a different approach of mobility and balance and all of these different factors that go into basketball that I think that the program at UND itself, when they teach you curriculum, that they neglect or maybe they don't put as much emphasis on. So I had Fantuzzi right away, and I loved him. We would do stuff like taping our mouths and doing these contralateral circuits.
Baby.
Yeah, contralateral circuits with all of these bands, and we're pushing and pulling. And a lot of guys just hated it because it was different. And a lot of people, when they see something that's different, they just automatically judge it.
It's the black sheep.
No matter if it works or not, which is very unfair because the way that I would feel, because I was predominantly a mouth breather, when I came out of there and I had breathed through a 45-minute workout nonstop through my nose, I've never felt more clear in my life. And so then he tells us, to read books. And I read this book that he recommended called The Oxygen Advantage. Changed my life. So anyway, we had a lot of success, and he was there for 4 years. In his 4 years, there was only 3 injuries that had occurred when he was there. 2 were acute, just hamstring, tendon issues, 2 to 3 weeks, you're good. There was 1 broken foot, and that happened in the off season while we were not training. And so this dude knew what he was talking about and knew what he was doing. And because he went against the grain, he had a lot of conflict with the people that were up above him that were, paying his salary.
Yep.
So eventually, I think because of that, he was out of there, even though he's a great guy. And then the next guy that I had is, I forget his last name, but he played for the Atlanta Falcons for a little while as a middle linebacker, or maybe he was outside. He was a good athlete. He's a really good guy, but he's just he's very, very strong. He's very, very
football
athletic.
Brain.
He's got a football brain, like you, but I don't know if it's seasoned like yours is, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of remind me of Sean a little bit. Like you're holistic. Like more about just getting big. Like if I want to put on 15 to 20 pounds, I'm gonna go to Will. But if what I'm doing is hurting my body, that's the last place I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna tell you to push through. He's gonna say that no pain, no gain. And now because we're very much smarter than we were back in the 1990s. We're going away from that mentality where you don't have to. Like I just watched a podcast with KG, and he said, you guys don't know, we had to pop 6-7 pills before we'd play.
Yep.
Why would I ever want to play basketball and do that? So, okay, I'm going to go to Sean Fantuzzi instead of you if I have pain. But if I don't have pain and I need a gain, I'm a opponent, I didn't even know it. I'm going to Will. I'm going to Will every single time. So, I mean, it's just I had a very different experience both of those years, and really because of the state that my body was in, which I was in chronic pain because of past injuries that I had never done rehab for and that I never had fixed the root causes to. I just stretched, did yoga, stuff like that. It didn't fix any root causes. So going to Will now and training with him, my body could not take it. So 9 games into the year, I'm going up for a layup, and it's a wide open fast break layup after I got a steal, and I just tore my labrum. No contact. No contact, though, like just going up for a layup. Damn. So after that happened, that made me think, I was like, do I really want to be here, if I have to lift like this? Because there's no special treatment. I already tried that route. And with Sean, you could do that. But with Will, everybody's going to get on that barbell. So I had to make a business decision for myself and say, okay, am I going to last? Because I don't know if I was going to last putting 600 pounds on my back and putting that thing up and down every day. Yeah. So
it's a different approach, man. People look at the 1990s that you brought up, and so Nebraska was the very first school ever to adopt strength and conditioning, very first place to ever hire a strength and conditioning staff. And in the 1990s, we know what Nebraska did in football. They were very, very good. They ran trained. They were the Bama of our decade. And the old mentality used to be, well, lifting weights will make you slow. There's a spectrum of that. There's definitely a spectrum. And so I don't know why, but I kind of ran into the same issues. Who was your first coach again? Not Will. Fantuzzi. What's his first name?
Sean.
I'll go Sean. So Sean ran into issues with upper management, people that were giving that salary, because there's this mentality that if I did it, we have to do it. And there's a good analogy. So say you're at Thanksgiving with your in-laws families, and they cut this turkey in half and put 2 separate turkeys in the oven. And you're like, hey, you ask your wife, why do you guys do that? I don't know. It's what my mom did. So you ask the mom, why do you do this? I don't know. That's what my grandma did. So then you get to the grandma who's in the old folks' home. She said, well, when back in the day, we didn't have an oven that was big enough, so we cut it in half. So there's no reason to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, just because it worked doesn't mean it's the optimal. And so that's what I like in my experience with you, and getting to see your different backgrounds of having these high-level coaches. I'm able to, one, gauge if I even know what the hell I'm talking about, one. And 2, get to learn from you and your experiences. Hey, this worked with me. This didn't work with me. And this is where we can head, I like that, because instead of just me being the entire guiding light, some athlete coming in very fresh, unseasoned, just very newbie, I can help mold them. That's cool. But then they only have my perspective, which my perspective is not 100% right. That's how I look at it. And I think having that different aspects of UND, SUU, having what you did here and what that didn't work, it's what made you now, And so I've truly enjoyed it, and we've just got started, you and I, and I'm sure it'll just keep on going from there. But I want to hear unbiased, just so I can kind of see from you. How's the experience in the very short period of time that we've had together? How's that transpired for you?
Colby, we talked about this, man. I told you, I said you are one of the, like I just said, you're holistic. So that means you know what you're talking about outside of the guidelines of just getting big. But you take an approach that involves biomechanics, like gait and running is something that you prioritize, instead of being able to lunge, being able to squat, being able to, if it doesn't translate to running, then you're like, why are we doing it?
That was the basis we talked about.
Exactly. And so what you do too is you got to do a lot of rotational work. And a lot of people don't realize that your right lat connects, the muscle fibers go and connect to the left glute, right? So that's that rotational lever. The left lat then connects to the right glute. And then you have a bunch of fibers across your abs and obliques that connect to the opposite side of the pelvis, to the ribs. So you have this whole function of rotation, and all we're doing is training in a linear plane.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's terrible. We're not robots, but we train like robots. You know what I'm saying? My
best analogy, I'll let you get back to it. If you can do all your movements that you are prescribing in a doorway, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
we have to be able to move side to side.
Exactly. Yeah. And if my sport doesn't involve really just Olympic lifting, then why am I not doing rotational work? Why am I not doing stuff that's functional to what I'm going to be doing on the court? Because I'm going to be honest, basketball outside of football is one of the most dangerous sports because a lot of the injuries that happen are not contact. And that's not why it's dangerous, because of the contact. It's dangerous because of the vulnerable positions the body is being put in, non-contact. If I go dunk a ball and I dunk a ball with my right hand up in the air, if you jump and you reach your right hand up in the air as far as you can, you are going to have to land on that opposite leg. And then the other one will swing down when you land. Mm-hmm. So you're landing from 4 feet in the air, getting bumped in the air, going 15 miles an hour on one leg.
Yep. With
people that are below you as well. So you have to know how to land. You have to have good mechanics when you run, when you jump. You see a bunch of these people that tear ACLs just doing a Euro step.
Yep.
Why is that? It's because all they trained to do was to do a lunge very, very heavy. But what about the absorption of energy to redirect energy? Nobody ever talks about that stuff. Yep. And we don't even train for it, and it doesn't make sense to me. So when I come here and we do stuff that actually applies to what I'm going to be doing on the court, then that just tells me right away, you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, but if you were like, oh man, you know, we got to get you big, so we're going to do this. It's
just
like,
the barbell.
It's like, okay, we can get myself to have muscle, but also do stuff that applies, because it's not like I play golf, you know?
Exactly, man.
We push and we shove and we jump and we run. So every single muscle of the body is going to be used. So when we apply stuff that I do on the court into the weight room, it's going to be a full body workout, right?
And there's an argument to be had here. And I think basketball could be, hands down, the most fundamental, primal athletic event there is. There is an argument for that. I mean, gymnastics is there too.
True.
But just how we talked about the different positions that you're putting yourself in. And then just talking about two things here, the absorption and reacceleration of force, and then also the different positions that you're putting in, but how can your body, if we want to be very good at basketball, we have to be very good at deceleration. Everybody's worried about acceleration. Great. But if you can't slow down, we've all seen those guys that when somebody puts on the brakes, they're going, you know? So it's very important to, as you alluded to, all this training with the barbell, kettlebell, dumbbell is important. But if I can't correlate it in your head or my head of why this is going to make you a better sprinter or somebody that can change directions or cut on a dime, then why are we doing it? That's where I get back to. And I have a lot of people, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants too. Like I've got to learn under people that any NAIA school in the country, Leno should not be there. And people like that I can form my own philosophy because, again, we talked about your coach that had trouble with different personalities at UND. I had troubles with some at DSU as well because it was traditional and Colby. And so navigating that was different, but taking, just as you are, taking stuff from Leno, taking stuff from X, Y, Z, and applying it is kind of how I got where I'm at. And so the importance of being able to, one, learn from you, absorb force, decelerate it, and reaccelerate it, and be a more efficient basketball player. Because I said I had this football brain that it was always hard-hitting, fast, weight-slinging, meat-eating, just savages, you know? And so then it's like, hey, Colby, we need you to do train the DSU basketball team. I was like, oh, shit, okay. And I found out real quick that there's some ballers, dude, that people don't realize the athletic demand of basketball. And again, it's just cool to see because football's athletic, but there's a more primal movement to it. Yeah. With what you guys are doing, it's out of this world, man.
Also, you guys get one play every 30 seconds. I will say that.
That's what we talked about. That's exactly what we talked about. I think we sat down one day. I didn't have a client afterwards. Football, the basis of football, for every you guys watching, you go as hard as you can for an average of 3 to 8 seconds on the max, and then you get to rest. Basketball, you have to perform under fatigue perfectly. That's different at its root just by that. If you can't perform under fatigue, maybe basketball's not where you need to be. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, It's just different, and that's why possibly the different forces, the different joint angles, how to land, but being under fatigue is why there's a lot of injuries, man.
And that's the thing, too, is we talk about, like, how like when you're under the squat rack, you know, and you're doing 3 sets of 8 on the 7th and 8th rep, is it gonna look as good? No, because fatigue is gonna set in. Your dynamics are not gonna be as efficient, right? Your knee might collapse in. You might start coming up on one side and not the other. So when you're fatigued and you have to do all of these things that put your body in a vulnerable position, it's just not gonna end up good.
Yep.
Like,
And you fall to the level of your training.
always, every single time.
Every single time. I just had a podcast, just a little snippet I put out. So say I need to go drive to McDonald's and I need to get a McDouble and a McChicken and a McFlurry. Well, I drive there and I hit 9 cars on the way there. I get my McFlurry. I flip my car. I get it towed back to my house.
You just said this today, didn't you?
I got to A to B.
Yeah, you got to A to B.
I got to A to B.
I just heard this today.
Exactly.
Talking
it's
about.
like I don't get why there's not an emphasis on that. You know what I mean? Like weight is weight, and I get it. It's cool. I'm a bigger statured guy. I like slinging weight, but that's not the end all be all. You know, so it's just I think as coaches and players, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard of if this layup isn't perfect from A to B, is it worth it?
Yeah.
You know?
You know what I think it comes down to? My parents talk about this all the time, like when we go and eat in restaurants or like fast food or just like custodians, like how people nowadays like are so like busy with their virtual world on their phone that they don't really take pride in what they do, you know, as much as they used to. Like even the guys that had a car wash job, they would make sure they did the best job they could every time. Now it's kind of just do the job, get it done with, go home, you know, get your money, da-da-da.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when it comes to people getting a degree in college, they're 18 years old and they're pressured to do something that, you know, they might not want to do. Exercise science. A lot of people, that's a common thing for a lot of athletes. Communications. Like in exercise science too, what else do you do with it, you know, besides being a strength and conditioning coach? I'm exercise science myself, and I really don't know, because when it comes to having a personal clientele list and starting your own business, I'm not going to do that now during COVID.
No.
I mean, it's tough. What you're doing is
100%.
tough.
100%.
So, I mean, what you do is you want to get hired by an institution. So that same person that had to make that commitment at 18, that played sports and didn't know what else he wanted to do in life, just committed to that profession, even though he wasn't passionate about
Just cause.
And he's just going to show up to work and then give you the curriculum that he had gotten during college, and he's not doing anything in the off season to get better. Just like a lot of coaches, I think, at the high school level, they just coach because they just thought it was a good idea to coach.
Yeah.
And then what happens is during the summer, they don't go to clinics. They don't try to learn from mentors, and they become the same coach for 30 years, and kids get burned by it.
Stagnant.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it happens in teaching profession just as much as anything.
Almost everything. And I'm just, I really think around the clock, like when I talk to my parents, I don't know, obviously, but when I talk to my parents, it seems like the quality of work and the quality of professionals at this level is a lot lower than it used to be, which is a good thing for me and you, because it's easier to climb that ladder now.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're going to hold a quality that's above the average.
Exactly. And
You
it's
know what I'm
not that
saying?
hard to just like work hard and be a good person.
Yep.
But nowadays it really is becoming to generally.
Yeah, but and I think it comes from our background though too. Countless shots that you've had to put up. High school is probably more of a drag or more work, the fundamental work up front just to get you to the level you were in high school.
Oh.
Right? I mean, just the amount of shots you had to put up. It's so technically dependent, just how much work you had to put in. So now it's like, hey, I find what I want to do.
Yeah.
That work's easy. It's not work.
This
isn't work.
It's just kind of just like at this point, like I do this.
Yeah.
You know, like I just do this. Like I talk to my trainer too, and I'm like, I'll literally be the guy that's 50 years old, still just going to get shots up whenever I'm stressed out, because now it's like a stress reliever. And I know a lot of people use exercise as a stress reliever, but like I also get that. And then the swish of the ball is another just euphoric experience in itself.
Man.
It's crazy.
I wish I could have seen you play it when you were in high school too. I mean, it'd be dope to get out to SUU too, dude.
Man,
I'd go out there and watch.
You know, 90 miles away, you can do whatever you want out there.
Yep.
There's a lot of different options for you to visit.
Dude, so much. There's almost too much. You don't know what you want to do.
You might get stuck there, to be honest.
Exactly.
You know, and real estate's going pretty good. I know you're an investor. You might get stuck there.
Exactly, man. Actually, I'm just getting pre-approved. Hopefully, get first rental like soon.
Wow.
So hopefully, I don't know when.
I see a lot of for sale signs in Dickinson right now.
Yeah. A lot of people are
Prices
trying
are
to sell.
pretty low.
Yeah. Well, it's starting. So skyrocketed, absolutely skyrocketed. Lumber went through the roof. My wife and I were planning on building. If we would have built, we would have paid 3 times the amount. On average, $100,000 house, over $300,000. It's like, if I tried to sell that in 30 years, I would still be upside down. Yeah. So we decided, hey, maybe we should get 1 to 2 rentals before we build. And so that's kind of the plan. But Dickinson, it's weird because with COVID, now this shortage, prices skyrocketed. Well, Dickinson itself is very dependent on oil.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a moderator. So the prices are moderate right now, but it's starting to come down because we're seeing this inflation of the dollar. We're seeing all these issues. That's where it's going to bite us in the ass. But it's the best time for people like this, Yeah. Like, there's probably no better time to own a condo in Southern Utah. I mean, like, keep that, dude. It's going to be probably your biggest investment, I would say. But, the experience here has been well. I think for me on my side, again, I like learning from an athlete, seeing what works, because what I did wasn't 100% right either. It's very cool to see, because when I was your age, when we were both in high school, say, I was doing bodybuilding splits. I was doing back and buys, chest and tries, like just you know what I'm saying?
I mean, you can't see the wear and tear on me, but I was doing that too.
Yes, sir.
To a small level.
Exactly, dude. And it's just it's very different. Yeah. But from there, this whole year that has transpired, for you, a lot of different evolutions and transitions have happened. And selfishly, I want to pick your brain about fatherhood. I want to pick your brain on that and how that has changed you as an individual still playing at a very high level, D1 basketball, and also fatherhood. I watched a post of yours, and it said, I believe it said, "But first, I'm a father."
Yeah.
So, walk us through that. How is that? Everybody says it changes your life.
Oh man, it's weird because, you know how people, when you have a kid, they're like, "Oh no," especially when you're not with the mother. Mm-hmm. It's always, "Oh no, this is
tragic."
It's like, how is this? Now I'm thinking back, I'm like, I wish somebody would say that to me now. Mm-hmm. I wish somebody would look me in the eye and say, "That's tragic that you had a kid." What? How does that even sound? So it's easily the best thing that'll ever happen to you in your life, by far. Over any accomplishment you'll have, your first kid that you have is by far the best thing that's going to happen in your life. And it's also how I love to learn from people. I never realized how much I can learn from my son. Mm-hmm. Because even in the Bible, we don't got to get back to Christianity right now, but even in the Bible, it says, be like a child. And I'm looking at the child and how joyful they are, how, I asked my wife one time, I was like, could you ever make him insecure about himself? Could you ever make him anxious? Could you ever make one of these kids in 2nd, 3rd grade, can you make them insecure about themselves? It's so hard to, because she's a 3rd grade teacher, and it's so hard to be able to mess with the kids' mental health. But it's as they grow up, they become more
susceptible, yeah.
And you kind of can see that kid and the traits that they have mentally, and their, I don't know, just kind of the way they process things, right? They'll be watching a movie, and you'll be like, Asher, he's so locked in on what he's doing. He's not worrying about this and that and
he's 4 different
things. He's in the moment, so you kind of can take some of the way that they process things and apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And it brings you joy. It brings you just to be able to learn from that, and then to be like, wow, this is crazy. I can learn from a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
What?
My biggest issue that I know is attempting to be present too. To be present, the profession I picked.
Like how you said attempting to, because it's always, every moment is an attempt.
Always.
Naturally, bro, when we have so much responsibility, we get taken out of that. So we have to attempt. Yep. I like the way you said that.
Yeah, man. I would say it's probably one of the biggest struggles in my life. I've gone through drug addiction. I've gone through all that. That's a piece of cake compared to truly putting 100% time and effort. But what I do, I found what I love. And so when I'm in there, it's your session. It's our time, you know? So like that's helped a lot. But what we're doing right now, social media is a massive part in my business. And it's very hard to navigate those waters a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But I also like that I've never thought about that this child's mind becomes more susceptible to anxiety, anxiousness, depression, all this stuff as they go on.
And it's environment. So I should have spoke on that too. It's environment, because in third world countries, they don't have these issues.
Mm-mm.
Like people can have nothing and still be happy with it.
Yeah.
Like not here though, because I feel like it's environment, right? So now we have like this overstimulation of information.
Yeah.
Right. And so now it's like, because we're putting so much stuff in our minds, we forget to pay attention to our bodies, right? And how we feel. And, you know, like you'd be surprised how many people just don't know how they feel, which causes anxiety and depression, because anxiety is the thing of not knowing, right? Worry is not knowing. So a lot of people just don't know how they feel. And like, you know, so that's why they can't express themselves, because they don't know how to. They don't know themselves. Right? So we overstimulate our minds with information that keeps our bodies aware of how we feel, because you can't do both at the same time. It's pretty hard to think and feel at the same time.
Yeah.
So to turn off that button in your brain that keeps going or keeps trying to digest things is one of the biggest tools that you can have, and just to be able to hone in on like specific time where you're going to learn, right? If I'm going to study for a test, I'm not just going to pull up a YouTube video and have it run while I do dishes, and you know, this is what the whatever the Krebs cycle is about, whatever. I'm going to literally put down 30 minutes and study my notes intentionally. So that's the thing, is people are just learning nonchalantly and getting a bunch of information, but they don't know they don't know what to do with it, and also
process it.
How to process it, because yeah, man, like people just take something that somebody says and then, you know, oh, that's what I think now too. But they don't build it off of the foundation of information that they already have, that they've already attained throughout their whole life. And they go kind of guess and check. Like, so what did Aristotle say? Like the ability to entertain an idea without accepting or rejecting it. Think about that. Nowadays, like you hear anything politically. How do people, you know, like listen to Trump
just
or
grab
Biden
hold of it
without accepting or accepting or rejecting what he's saying? People don't have that skill anymore, because they really don't know how they feel.
Well, it's so polarizing. So they see a sound bite, and grab a hold and say, "This is fact. Like, this is true." And I have a huge military background with my family. I've got to be around some high level military guys. And long story short, I just think that what set the United States apart 10, 20 years ago is the onset of technology, is the onset of social media, is the onset of availability. That's what it comes down to, availability. And whatever it is, if that's computers, phones, whatever. Ironically, it's going to be the downfall of us, I think. I think it's going to be the complete downfall of what we do. We're talking right now, which is very scary. We're talking about the biggest threat to the United States right now are malware attacks. These attacks that stop the supply chain. You control the people, you control the food, you control the food, you control the people. And so I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also very anxious about that. I can be anxious about it. I grew up my whole life knowing and loving a higher power of God, and I have that in me. I have this other end too, that this anxiousness of the unknown, and I just feel that this could be the downfall of Rome as we look at it. And it's this pivotal moment, and this isn't a very popular conservative view. I'm a conservative person. I vote red. I vote for the person I like, but it's usually that route, okay? Well, we go into separate countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Colombia, wherever, and we instill democracy. We instill this sense of democracy because your country is ruined.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that going to feel weird when our country's in ruins, then Russia or China comes in and say, hey, we need to stop you guys. Yeah. We need to come here, fix you guys. Because Rome will always fall. And we talked about when Rome fell, actually it was my ancestors that came down and killed everybody. But it's going to come to the point where we have to get back to our roots of how we lived in small communities, how we ate, how we did technology. And so it's this blessing and this curse of having the best of everything, but too much of the best of everything. Yeah. You know, like I just always think about that this could be that pivotal moment, and I hope it's not, but this could be that pivotal moment that the United States isn't the United States as it used to be and has been. I don't know, man.
Man, I really don't speak this opinion, you know, like outwardly a lot. Just because you brought that up, I'm going to share what I think about that. And honestly, I've been doing just research, you know, I follow accounts on Twitter that are, you know, enlightening, and Instagram that like I follow doctors, I follow all these different types of people that do podcasts, and they give you a bunch of information on, it's kind of like a reality check of where the United States is at health-wise, you know, like as far as obesity, mental health, physical, emotional, all the people that need help and are reaching out to help. It's like these professions, like the healthcare system and pharmaceuticals are more involved in keeping a person in that place so then they can keep treating them instead of actually freeing them from the bondage that they're in. You know, and even the food supply too, because let's be honest, like with all this COVID stuff and even obesity as well, like why don't people tell you instead of taking a vaccine, instead of taking a diet pill, eat healthy and exercise? Why don't they tell you to do that? Because they're not going to support their own agendas in their own markets, right? So it's kind of
There's no money in that.
There's no money in that. And there's also no money in telling a person to take a natural herb of any sort, right? But in China, it's weird because in China and other Asian countries, if you walk into these medicine stores, they just give you herbs, like cancer. They give you herbs, right? You walk in and walk out with it. That's part, in some areas of China, that's part of their healthcare system. So why are we not taking that and using it? Well, because we can't benefit off something that grew out of the ground that God made. Yep. You know, maybe individuals can, but it's going to be easier to just manufacture a pill, pay a scientist to fund a university, you know, to do the research, knowing that if that research comes out to be not the conclusion that the pharmaceutical companies want, they will never come back to you for research ever again. So you're going to do what you can to be able to maybe eliminate a variable, you know, do this, do that, or maybe run that test a few more times to see if, can I get the right result? Exactly. So antidepressants and stuff like that, it helps 12% of the people in non-placebo trials, and 78% of people have side effects because of them.
Jordan Peterson.
Come on, man.
Jordan Peterson coming off that, man.
Yeah.
They say that's the hardest.
I follow him too. That's another one of those guys that just knows what he's talking about.
High level, dude. They say coming off of that is the absolute worst than alcohol, worse than heroin, worse than anything, because it completely jacks up the entire androgen profile. The whole hormone system is off. Yeah. And I have a deep connection to that as well, because my addiction started with pain medication. Well, for a long time, I didn't think about why I wanted that pain medication. I was just like, oh, that shit feels good. Like, I want that. But in the big scheme of things, what was I chasing? It was a sense of satisfaction. It was a sense of love. Everybody, we talk about daddy issues. There's something to that. You know what I'm saying? And so I was chasing this sense, but then the only thing that filled it halfway was this pharmaceutical. And I just can't get over the fact of there's no money in it, so they're not going to justify it. Just like, and forgive me for not knowing the names, but ivermectin, and there's one other drug. For this COVID, it has been the most successful drug, hands down, to fight off and fend against COVID. Well, how patents work, you and I were talking, how patents work, this patent allows for no reproduction at sale value. You can't sell this to make $1. Well, Mexico, when we were first getting into the pandemic, March 19th, when everything's starting to shut down, they said, we need to make a humanitarian decision. What's the best for the humans from the knowledge we have right now? let's roll this out. They rolled out ivermectin. They rolled out this other drug, cut down significantly, 3/4 of their caseload, gone, completely gone. And then we decide to manufacture Pfizer, Moderna, all these different things so that we can, there's so much to this that it's so hard to handle, man. Like, I think
we got to be objective on here, Colby.
I know, man. It's so hard to like really wrap your head around it. This sportsmanship, this is my last thing I'll say about it. When H1N1 happened, the swine flu, 28 people died from the vaccine. The vaccine was pulled, gone, said nobody can take this. Yeah. Is it just because we don't want to draw the correlations between death and COVID vaccine? Or is there an agenda behind it saying, well, that's just correlation, that's not causation?
Yes.
So that's where I'm at. Like, there's better alternatives. Delta variant is now just something that is used for FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah. And
yeah, man, it's a weird world. The last thing I asked, I have clients ranging from, my longest client ever is just at 4 years. Her name's Michelle Miller. Total knee replacement, got it back going. Anyway, she's about mid 50s, 60. And I asked her, is this the weirdest time in your entire life? Is this the weirdest time you've ever lived through? She said, hands down. Like, hands down, this is the weirdest time. Gone through September 11th, the Cold War, all these different things, that this is the craziest time in a lot of recent history. It's crazy, man. I don't know how to react because I've been stressed out about it. But at the same token, like, we have to be very comfortable in the unknown. We just have to do what we have to do.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what's in front of you is in front of you, right? So if you want to put the CNN and the Fox News in front of you, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but and actually it was funny, I think a New York senator said this like a couple of days ago, but he said, like, we got to go to, you know, knock on doors and bring people, convince them, take them in to get their shot, go to houses with the shot and get the. I'm like, okay, until they're in front of me, like I said, I choose what's in front of me. Until they're in front of me, then I'm not even going to worry about it. Like, I'm not going to worry about myself even, you know what I'm saying?
I like that approach.
It has nothing to do, like, if you get it, okay, that has nothing to do with me. So I'm not going to tell you to get it or not to get it. But
or look at you different.
Yeah, or look at you get different because you're a grown man or you're a grown woman and you can make your own decisions. But for me to be able to do that, like, I'm not going to judge your decision. If you want to do it and you feel it's okay, you can do that. Just like if you drink alcohol, if you want to smoke weed, if you want to become a bodybuilder. If you want to become a bodybuilder, that's not going to be great for your body. Look at these Olympic athletes that are in weightlifting competitions that walk up to the bar.
Performance and health.
Do you want to be like that and be unhealthy and end up in a wheelchair because of the stuff that you're doing?
Ronnie
if you want
Coleman.
to do that, hey, I'm not going to look at you different. It's the same concept, but at the same time, it's like, why do you have to be mad at me because I don't want to do it?
Mm-hmm. Then they bring out the humanitarian aspect of it. Oh, well, you could save somebody.
But how am I going to save you
from if you're vaccinated?
I'm going to save you from a virus that you got vaccinated for because I'm not vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So what does the vaccine do? Yeah. What are you talking about? Like, if we can't question this?
Yeah.
I think I just put something on yesterday. Like, I don't really repost things on my Instagram, but I put something on my Instagram. I reposted it.
I think that was today or yesterday.
I think it might have been today too.
Yeah.
But it was like, don't ask questions. And I was just put a bunch of laughing emojis because it's like, we can't ask questions about this. Since when can we not ask a question about something this crazy?
Yep.
Like, okay, if you get a, like a HPV vaccine before you go to college, okay, if you get that vaccine, somebody that doesn't have it is not going to affect you. They tell you that. That's the whole reason why you get it. The reason they want you to get it is so that somebody that doesn't have the vaccine meets you who doesn't have the vaccine, and then you get it.
Yep.
So what are we talking about? Like, is this science or is this just propaganda?
It's just the suppression of
it's
the
hilarious.
Human voice.
It's really hilarious. And then they're talking about, God, I hate talking about politics, but it's really not politics to me because it's just about like what people say in the spotlight. Like, I'm like, you're really on camera saying this to my face right now. What? Like, wow, I can't believe somebody would have that audacity to say this on camera on live television. Like, we should not have IDs to vote. You just said that on TV.
But you need one for vaccine.
You need one for a vaccine. You just said that on TV that you don't need an ID to vote. Okay, if you're a citizen, if you have a job, you need an ID.
Yeah.
If you have a car or a cell phone, you probably need an ID too. If you have any Social Security, if you have insurance, if you're a taxpayer, you got an ID. You don't need a driver's license to have an ID. You can go get a regular ID, but we don't need one to vote. You just lied there, just on camera, just saying that you think that's a good idea. Like, what is your agenda behind that, though?
Yep.
Because there's no way anybody buys into that, but we do.
Yeah. Sadly,
It's
it comes
crazy,
down.
man.
Sadly, it all comes back to money and power.
It's crazy, bro.
The suppression of the human voice. It comes down to money and power. And I've never seen on either side, but I've never seen this level of suppression.
Yeah.
On any. So now, and this is neither right or left, neither here nor there. When Trump was in office, he was ostracized for saying that this could have possibly come from a lab. That is the actual story now.
Exactly.
That's what the main narrative is, that this possibly came from a lab. But then it's going to get the president banned off Twitter. It's going to get anybody. Colby Wortman.
I might get banned because you saw that little bubble that popped up when like you see that story. It says like fact checker. Like I might even get banned.
Yeah.
Like, shoot, they could silence me and I'm not even saying shit.
100%, dude. It's again, that gets us back. This is the weirdest time, and I'm going to take this from you because I can learn from it too. I've been stressing a lot about not me as much. I own my own business. I write my own rules.
Yeah.
But my wife works at a hospital. Sanford just required every single employee to have it, brother. She works at CHI. What's their play? What's going to happen there? And so you said it. I don't need to worry about it until they're in front of me, and I need to take that approach. Yeah. We need to be ready for it, but I don't need to ruin my mentality, my cognitive development because that's looming. Yeah, you know. So
because there's a possibility.
Yeah, there's preparation, which you need to do, but to completely derail what you're doing because of that, that's what they want. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
oh, yeah, fear. That's all, the news is not a charity. the news is not for you and for the people. The news is a big corporation that goes off of subscribers and little people that tune in, and that gets a tally mark of how many people are tuning in, and they get paid by advertisements and all of these different type of private companies. Yep. And I think they get paid to say whatever some of these people want because, like, let's be honest, like the Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson stuff that, we talk about how back in the 2000s they were sued for the most money, both of those companies, 1 and 2, for the most money in any lawsuit ever, like billions of dollars, billions. Now these companies just made more than their money back by making multiple $1 billion off these vaccines, yet nobody's talking about the cases that they had back in the early 2000s. Are they being silenced, because of the money that is given to these companies that come up with the script to say every day? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So, like, these companies, people got to realize, like, they're not charities. Like, I'm not saying everything that they say is wrong. I'm not saying you can't take anything from Fox or even CNN, even though I don't know anything about CNN or Fox because I don't watch them. But I'm just saying, like, you have to have a lens of, like, use a biblical word, discernment, to be able to process things that you see. Otherwise, you're just going to be a sheep like everybody else is, saying that, everybody should get vaccinated. Even if somebody is vaccinated, you could be harming them because they're, what I'm saying? You're a sheep. You can't think for yourself if you think that. Like, I don't care who you are. You're a sheep.
Yep. The like fact that you can't accept or decline.
Yeah.
Accept or decline the narrative.
Yeah.
Even in science and anything outside of the vaccine. I just did a podcast a while ago. I pulled up an article that was completely opposite end of my belief. And I read through it, and I was like, dude, this has a lot of good stuff. And then I said, this has a lot of good stuff, but I'm going to tear it apart. So I'm gonna show the opposite end of the argument and take the good and then tear it apart. Yeah. If we could have, maybe it's just dialogue. Maybe it's this is what people need. Yeah. Because instead of being Twitter warriors,
they need a new voice to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just like a kid, they don't want to listen to their parents, but as soon as a coach interjects, they're going to absorb that. Maybe it needs to be a different voice. The problem is the censorship of those voices. We can't get a true voice out, whether left or right is the thing. Sadly, all these big companies lean very, very to one side. I don't need to say what side it is, but yeah, man. So, dude, to wrap it up, this was the first one was fun because it was you and the sis, but this one was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, man. But we could do 10.
Bro,
that's the problem.
The thing is, the people don't know after we get off this podcast, like I probably won't be out of here for another 45 minutes. Like,
exactly.
Let's just be honest.
We're just chilling. So if you had to give, I wrap up with one of 3 questions usually. Yeah. If you had to give your younger self a note or some advice, what would that be, man?
Oh, man, I would tell myself to. Man, I would just tell myself that in no way, in no circumstance can confidence, not cockiness, not arrogance, can confidence hurt you. And always use that as your sword and your weapon in any situation, even if you don't know what you're doing. If you do things with confidence, you'll always be right. And then you'll never second guess yourself when it comes to the decisions that you make, right? And then that anxiety, that worry will go away. So I wish that at an early age, that at a time when I was scrutinized for being confident.
I was just going to say that.
And cocky. People turned it into cockiness. And then I'm looking at some of my teammates that I got later in life and how they are. And I'm like, these people were 10 times worse than I was. Mm-hmm. I just was answering a question of, I think I'm this good. Because I really thought I was.
You believed it.
And I believed it, and the chances were, like, I wasn't trying to be just, like, an asshole. I was really like, okay, like I've played at this level and I've done that. So like I'm probably somewhere like right here in the middle of the pack. I'm not here, but I'm not here. I'm right here.
Yep.
And just because that person I was talking to wasn't at that level, oh yeah, you're cocky. Like, what should I say? I'm the worst? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, confidence, and anybody else that listens to this, like, confidence is your ultimate superpower.
I think that's very interesting, man, because anybody that knows you, the whole community of Dickinson, you've been scrutinized in the past for what you know to be as being very and sincerely confident. Yeah. What other people see on the other side as arrogant and rude is different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So even my wife and I have different opinions on stuff like this. Like, I just see the world different as a competitive world, as you need to have a chip on your shoulder to get to where you want to be, which it's, and you need to find that line. But a lot of people misunderstand confidence for arrogance, like a lot of the times, like, I mean, that's what happened with our president, our ex-president. There's a lot of stuff that confidence can be a huge weapon, dude. And it can be massive. It's probably what got you to where you've been, that chip on your shoulder, getting you to where you want to be. Yeah.
And what I didn't realize too is that you said, like, confidence is such a huge weapon, but sometimes when people judge you for having confidence, it's because they're actually jealous, because they're insecure in their own way, and they wish they could have that confidence. So instead of trying to go get it, they just try to bring you down to their level.
But people don't realize, even though, like, confidence is given off by you, doesn't mean that your life is exactly, and it doesn't mean that your life's all rainbows and roses. You've had to go through shit to get that confidence. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody, like, they put out this persona that this person is just way too overconfident. There's a reason for that, because they've done the work to be confident. If you hadn't done the work, confidence wasn't going to be your thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's a cool thing to have that is underutilized, man. But I can't thank you enough for who you are, brother.
Wait, what's the other 2 questions?
So I usually do if money, whatever. Okay. Right. If money wasn't required, it's a part of my why meeting. Yeah. If money wasn't required, and you could do anything out of the scope, because we talked about this with kids, we start putting these blinders on, like, oh, my family's middle class. Oh, I only have this much money. If all that was gone,
Yeah.
what would Aanen Moody be doing right now?
God, that's so tough. I got like two different things. So one of them is like I definitely want to like coach kids and not only just like basketball. Like I want to have a facility, and like maybe this can be a reality. I don't know, but like a facility where you have like strength and conditioning. You have a section of a portion of it, like a clinic that's strength and conditioning, a clinic that's physical therapy, chiropractic therapy, like for the elderly, for the people with special needs. We have basketball courts and we have trainers in basketball. We have a track. We have trainers for track, and we have this huge facility with all of these athletes in the area that can come and get the best training they can. Not only individual skill training, but these people that I would hope to employ would know how to do their job the correct way or had experience in what we're trying to teach. So they could teach like in basketball, like team concepts as well. And then connect all these kids together from this big area. And then they can, form more bonds and they could get better together instead of just having the kid that grows up in North Dakota go to the local community center and not have a lot of competition that he plays against. Right. And have this big facility and not have to rely on kids YouTubing their own stuff or learning from their parents and having professionals that can coach them as they grow up. So there's a guy that I know who I don't have time to explain, but he's very, very, very smart.
Yeah.
And he said that one of his friends in the NBL in Australia says that he does not take 20 and 21-year-olds, or I think he was an old college coach. He said he doesn't take 20 and 21-year-olds and try to teach them new things. As an 18, 17-year-old, though, he will try because he says that 20, 21-year-olds, they've already kind of been the players that they are, and they can't learn new things.
They're set in their
right?
ways.
So he told him, Grant, the coaching that I do right now is nowhere near important as the coaching that they get when they're in middle school. Not even close. And he's like, yet the coaches at that level are the worst. So I wish that I could bring kids to a good facility with good people at a young age and then let them blossom off of that instead of them getting to 17, 18 and being like, why am I just figuring this out?
Yep.
Oh, my God. I thought I was supposed to do buys and tries every day. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then I'd say out of that, the second thing I do is be a father.
Haha. Hey, man, it's changed your life.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Last question.
Okay.
Again, top of your head, first thing that comes to mind, what's the hardest thing that you've had to go through in life and to get on the other side? What is the hardest thing if it's death in a family, and how did you navigate that? It could be transitioning from school to school and the stuff behind that, anything. Because people look on the outside and think that life is just rainbows and roses for people that are successful, and it's fucking not.
Yeah.
So,
man, the hardest thing I would say is to transition into like a new identity, right? To like find out look yourself in the mirror and see what things you don't like, and then to try to grind and to change those things is so hard.
Bad.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's like over any addiction or parent dying or like that stuff, that pain can go away and you can replace that pain. But when it comes to replacing a bad habit that you've had your whole life to a good habit, or say you had a dysfunctional family and you have this trait in relationships that sabotages you, to change that stuff in your life is so hard. So I say to look at yourself in the mirror and then to change it is the
be
hardest
reflective
thing.
Of that, dude.
Yeah, and people see me now and they're like, wow, you're such a different person. Not that I was a bad person. I'm just different, right?
Version
because
2.
I've seen the things that I don't like about myself. And also in other people, I've seen things that I do like. And I'm like, I wish I was more compassionate like that. I wish I was more loving like that.
Yeah.
I wish I was less like this. So then you try to, you try.
Attempt.
You attempt.
Dude,
to do
it's
these
so
type of
hard.
things, man.
I found it in drugs and like trying to get off of that feeling of suppression. It was suppression of a feeling. But just changing a habit, dude, that's why, there's so many different things. It could be drugs or relationships or a habit in basketball that is just making you not a great player.
Oh, I still deal with that
Exactly.
right today. And I know exactly what I do and I still can't change it.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Just self-reflection, man. Probably the most important tool somebody can have.
Yeah.
Being self-reflective, because comparison is the theft of joy. We have to look inside, dude. That's a way to end it, brother.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Open hand.
Man, open hand
Open
all
hand.
day. He tries to bump me with the knuckles all the time, and I always go open hand because
man.
it's not COVID season anymore.
Exactly.
Not COVID season. So
All right,
if I
brother.
rock with you and you see me in public, we're going open hand, just so you guys know.
Yep. What's your Instagram, all that?
AJ Moody 9, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me if you want or not. I don't really post much, so
Yep.
I don't care. Love you guys anyway, though.
Yes, sir. Hey, it was a pleasure. Next Level Radio. Reach out. It's a fun. We're probably going to have. We're young, dude. We could probably have 10 more episodes down the road.
Man, I'll be back here every summer.
Yes,
so
sir. All right, ladies and gents.
Summer. See y'all next year.
Yes, appreciate your time. That's another episode of Next Level